think you know Titanic? You've sobbed through the string quartet, clenched your fists as Jack begged for space on that damn door, and muttered, "I'm the king of the world," at least once in your life, even if it was to an empty room. But Titanic isn't just the most expensive love letter to maritime disaster ever filmed. It's also a swirling vortex of near-death experiences, studio sabotage, psychic premonitions, and more water than Noah's Ark could handle. Beneath its polished surface lies a tangle of secrets, accidents, and raw obsession that even Jack and Rose didn't see coming. This isn't about rewatching Titanic. This is about seeing it again, for the first time, with your jaw slightly more unhinged, your admiration for James Cameron slightly more suspicious, and your appreciation for Billy Zane somehow deeper. So grab a life vest, because these facts are going to hit harder than that iceberg. Before you dive in, don't forget to subscribe for more weird, wild, and weirdly wild stories behind your favorite films. We drop cinematic deep dives like this every week, full of twisted trivia, untold set disasters, and the kind of backstage drama that deserves its own Oscar. Alright, ready to descend into the icy depths? Here are 14 mind-blowing facts you didn't know about the Titanic. The 14th will surprise you the most. 1. So the cast ate PCP-laced clam chowder. And no, that's not a joke. You might think the most dangerous part of filming Titanic was all the cold water, but for one horrifying night in Nova Scotia, it was the soup. On August 9, 1996, over 60 crew members, including director James Cameron and stars Bill Paxton and Susie Amos, were rushed to the hospital after eating clam chowder that had been laced with PCP. That's right, angel dust. Someone had intentionally spiked the food, turning the Titanic wrap party into an accidental psychedelic nightmare. Crew members were hallucinating, vomiting, crying, and, in Cameron's case, stabbing someone with a pen because he thought they were trying to stab him. Paxton later recalled, "People are moaning and crying, wailing, collapsed on tables and gurneys. I mean, it was like the Twilight Zone." The mystery of who did it remains unsolved. Suspects ranged from disgruntled chefs to a vengeful crew member. But the motive? Still murkier than the Atlantic. Some even believe it was a practical joke gone nuclear. Titanic didn't just sink on screen, it melted minds off camera. 2. James Cameron threatened to fire anyone who asked for a bathroom break. James Cameron is many things: visionary, tyrant, deep-sea explorer, probable Terminator. But during Titanic, he was something else entirely, a man possessed. Determined to make every dollar of his $200 million budget count, Cameron ruled the set with an iron megaphone. Waterlogged, overworked, and underheated extras endured endless hours in freezing water. Some caught colds, some got hypothermia, one even had a kidney infection. But Cameron, he kept pushing. He reportedly wore a wetsuit all day just so he could stay in the tank with his cast, shouting directions through a bullhorn. According to some crew members, he even told extras that if they asked for bathroom breaks, they were fired. One actor said he just peed in his costume because there was nowhere else to go. This wasn't just method directing, it was borderline torture tourism. And yet, somehow, they kept filming. Cameron didn't just direct Titanic, he survived it. 3. Kate Winslet got hypothermia, broke a bone, and still didn't get a warm robe. Kate Winslet wasn't acting when she was shivering in the water. She was actually freezing. After spending hours submerged in an enormous tank filled with cold water because Cameron refused to use warm water, it wouldn't look real enough. Winslet developed pneumonia symptoms and even suffered hypothermia. On top of that, she chipped a bone in her elbow during a stunt. Did she quit? Nope. Did she get a warm robe between takes? Also nope. Winslet later admitted that she was miserable, often crying in her trailer and swearing she'd never work with Cameron again. "You'd have to pay me a lot of money to work with Jim again," she once quipped. A lot of money. But spoiler, she did. They reunited for Avatar, The Way of Water, which involved even more wetness. Because apparently, once you survive Titanic, you're just wet for life. 4. The Grand Staircase was built to be destroyed, and then Cameron regretted it. One of the most iconic sets in movie history, the Titanic's Grand Staircase was a real full-scale, meticulously designed replica. Carved wood, wrought iron, glowing glass dome, it was all there. It looked like a museum piece, something to preserve. So naturally, Cameron built it to be obliterated. During the sinking sequence, the entire staircase was designed to collapse under a 90,000-gallon wave of water. It was a one-take shot. The water hit with so much force that it ripped the entire structure from its foundation and smashed it to pieces. There was no backup staircase, no second take, and once it was gone, it was gone. Cameron reportedly walked through the wreckage afterward and muttered, "What have I done?" He'd filmed the most expensive act of cinematic destruction since Ben-Hur's chariot race, and all for a few glorious seconds of chaos. 5. Leonardo DiCaprio wasn't nominated for an Oscar, and the Academy was publicly shamed for it. Remember Jack Dawson, that lean, scrappy dreamer who sketched French girls and froze to death with dignity? Well, apparently the Academy didn't. Despite Titanic scoring 14 Oscar nominations and winning 11, Leonardo DiCaprio was completely snubbed. Not a single nomination. Even the song got nominated. But Jack, nada. Fans were outraged, teen girls mailed letters, movie critics were stunned. Even Gloria Stewart, who played Old Rose and was nominated, said, "I don't know what Leo did to make them mad." James Cameron tried to play it cool, but insiders say he was furious. DiCaprio himself shrugged it off at the time, calling awards icing on the cake. Still, it wouldn't be until The Revenant, almost 2 decades later, that the Academy would finally hand him a statue. And by then, he'd fought a bear, not just an iceberg. Jack didn't get the Oscar, but Leo, he got revenge. Icy, like everything else on that damn ship. 6. The drawing of Rose, that's James Cameron's hand, not Leo's. You remember the moment. Jack, shaky but determined, sketches Rose like one of his French girls. The charcoal glides across the page. The camera lingers on the strokes. Sensual, intimate, oddly skilled for a guy who just bartered his way onto a ship. Except, those hands aren't Leo's. They're James Cameron's. Yep, the entire drawing sequence was performed by the director himself. Every line, every shade, every sensual curve of that necklace-adorned décolletage. Pure Cameron. In fact, all of Jack's drawings in the film were done by him. Cameron, a trained artist before he became Hollywood's underwater Napoleon, insisted on doing the sketches himself because he didn't trust anyone else to get the mood right. Even stranger, the film had to be mirrored in post-production because Cameron's left-handed, but Jack's right-handed, meaning they flipped the footage to hide the artist's true identity. So the most iconic hands in the movie belong not to the actor, but the director, quietly crafting his muse from behind the curtain. 7. The ship was built backwards. Building a 90% scale replica of the RMS Titanic was already absurd, but Cameron decided to one-up himself by making the entire starboard side of the ship, then flipping the footage in post. Why? Because the Mexican coast, where the ship was being built and filmed, didn't match the portside lighting and angle he needed for certain shots. So, rather than alter geography, Cameron just made the wrong side of the ship. This created a bizarre challenge. Everything had to be mirrored. All costumes, text, and even movement had to be reversed on set, then flipped back in editing. Crew had to learn to write backward. Actors had to favor their opposite hands. Signs had to be painted in reverse. It was a mirror world, a massive ship that only looked right when reversed in the editing bay. Leave it to James Cameron to spend hundreds of millions making a boat that only works when seen backward. 8. Titanic was so expensive, Fox tried to fire James Cameron. Titanic was originally budgeted at $110 million, a big number in 1996, but doable. Then Cameron did what he always does, doubled the cost. As production ballooned past $200 million, studio executives at 20th Century Fox began panicking. They tried to cut scenes, shrink the runtime, and, at one point, force Cameron off the project entirely. Cameron responded the only way a mad genius would. He offered to forfeit his entire directing fee just to keep control. He said, "You can take my salary, but you can't take my movie." That gamble paid off. Titanic became the highest-grossing film of all time, making over $2 billion and saving Fox from near financial ruin. But during production, they were sweating bullets and probably hoping that ship would sink. 9. The real Titanic survivors hated the film, especially one of the most famous. For most people, Titanic was a touching tribute. For Milvina Dean, the last living survivor of the real RMS Titanic, it was a cinematic slap in the face. Dean was just 9 weeks old when she survived the sinking. She refused to watch Cameron's film, calling it disrespectful, and too romanticized. Other survivors echoed the sentiment, upset that the true scale of the horror had been turned into a blockbuster love story. One survivor's grandson even accused the film of profiteering from tragedy and urged people not to see it. To be fair, Cameron never pretended Titanic was a documentary, but it stung the surviving families to watch their ancestors' final moments turned into popcorn drama. For some, it wasn't just a movie, it was their history, rewritten in 70mm tears and box office glory. 10. Billy Zane improvised the line that made him cinematic royalty. Cal Hockley, arrogant, controlling, emotionally bankrupt, played with such sneering brilliance by Billy Zane that you almost love to hate him. But the line that sealed his fate as a top-tier cinematic villain, it wasn't even in the script. "I'm not a foreman in one of your mills that you can command. I am your fiancé." Zane improvised that line in the heat of a take, channeling all the false dignity of a man whose whole identity is being threatened by a shirtless sketch artist with bad French. It was camp. It was fury. It was Cal. Cameron kept the line in because it was perfect, self-important, desperate, and exactly the kind of thing a man like Cal would scream before realizing he's the worst person on the ship not named Iceberg. Zane might not have gotten the awards, but he earned eternal memehood and possibly your grudging respect. 11. The Heart of the Ocean, a movie prop, inspired a real diamond that cost $20 million. The Heart of the Ocean, a fictional blue diamond the size of your thumb, wasn't just a plot device. It became an actual piece of jewelry history. Though it doesn't exist in real life, it was based loosely on the Hope Diamond. The film's iconic necklace was a high-end prop made from cubic zirconia set in white gold. But after Titanic exploded in popularity, London jewelers Asprey and Gerard crafted a real version, a 171-carat Ceylon sapphire surrounded by 103 diamonds. Cost over $20 million. It was so fancy that Celine Dion wore it to the 1998 Oscars while singing "My Heart Will Go On." Talk about meta. Even weirder, the real necklace was also dropped into the ocean. But as a stunt, Gloria Stewart, who played Old Rose, wore the $20 million necklace on a helicopter ride over the Atlantic and pretended to throw it into the sea during a press event. Because what's reality when you're already living inside the legend? 12th, the scene where the band keeps playing, it actually happened, and was even sadder in real life. The string quartet playing "Nearer My God to Thee" as chaos unfolds is one of the most haunting sequences in Titanic. It's tender, noble, gut-wrenching, and it's historically true. Wallace Hartley, the band leader on the real Titanic, really did lead his fellow musicians in playing until the very end. Survivors later confirmed it. Some say they played upbeat ragtime to calm passengers. Others insist it was hymns. But what Cameron didn't show was that all of the band members died, and only 3 of their bodies were ever recovered. Hartley's violin, water-damaged and warped, was found strapped to his body and eventually preserved. It sold at auction in 2013 for $1.7 million. So the next time you hear that somber swell of strings, know that it's not just movie magic, it's the echo of real people playing their final notes in the dark. 13. James Cameron dove to the actual Titanic, and then went back 33 more times. Before he filmed a single frame of Titanic, James Cameron wasn't just researching, he was diving to the actual wreck. In 1995, he descended 12,500 feet in a Russian submersible to capture real footage of the sunken ship. That's the opening footage in the film. Those aren't models. That's the real deal, but he didn't stop there. Over the years, Cameron returned 33 more times, logging more time on the Titanic's deck than most of the actual passengers ever did. He later said he only made the movie as an excuse to visit the wreck. For Cameron, it wasn't just filmmaking, it was obsession, pilgrimage, and control. He even designed his own submersible, the Deep Sea Challenger, and became the first solo human to reach the bottom of the Mariana Trench. James Cameron doesn't just direct deep stories, he literally dives into them. 14. One actor has a Titanic link to both sinkings. Here's where things get extra eerie. Jonathan Hyde, who played J. Bruce Ismay, the real-life White Star Line exec who escaped the Titanic and became a historical villain, also starred in The Mummy and Richie Rich. But here's the weird part. He also played a character in the 1997 miniseries The Sinking of the Laconia. The RMS Laconia was another British ship that sank in 1917. 2 ships, 2 disasters, same actor. Both times, His character survives while others don't. It's one of those cinematic coincidences that feels almost cursed. Or maybe he just has excellent lifeboat instincts. Either way, Hyde has become the unofficial face of maritime escape. Someone cast him in a Coast Guard drama immediately.